गिरिवरधारी गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीर वनचारी यमुना तीर वनचारी जय राधा माधव जय जय हरि हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा गिरिधरी भगवान की जय जय राधा श्याम सुंदर भगवान की जय
जय
मात बलदेव सुभद्रमय की जय जय
जय
श्री भगवान की जय
जय
जय श्री निताई की जय
जय
तत्व भगवान की जय जय श्री गुरु परंपरा की जय
जय
जय श्री जगत गुरु भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिला प्रभुपाद की जय
जय
वंदे हरि हरि बोल all glories to the assembled devotees
हरे
Hare
कृष्णा
all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna
हरे कृष्णा
all glories to the assembled devotees Hare
हरे
Krishna
कृष्णा
all glories to Guru and Gauranga all glories to Srila Prabhu Hare Krishna
God ki jai. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the nice start to the program. So before that, so as I mentioned, I have no qualification whatsoever, and mostly I'm filled with a lot of impurities. So just to try and remove little bit 1% of the impurity, I just want to chant the Lord's prayers. Om apavitro pavitro va sarvavastham gatopi va yasmaret pundarikaksham sa bahya abhyantaram suchi Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu. ओम अज्ञानातिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जन शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदामयं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीन बंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे नमो महावदान्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गौरतिशे नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातम् अहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणं नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेष भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः नमः पंकजनाभाय नमः पंकजमालिने Nama Pankajanetraya, Namaste Pankajangre. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for kindly joining today for this morning session. So before going ahead, just to remind myself, whatever little bit we are able to utter, it's only thanks to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, without whose immense contributions throughout his life, translating all these great scriptures, we would have no access to any of that. So, to honor Srila Prabhupada, so we'll continue with the Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. So Mataji had mentioned this is the new chapter, which was to begin. Hopefully it connects. Yeah. Just Chapter 16, Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, Volume 1, Free to Preach. Here I am now, sitting in New York, the world's greatest city, such a magnificent city, but my heart is always hankering after that Vrindavan. I shall be very happy to return to my Vrindavan, that sacred place. But then, why are you here? Now, because it is my duty. I have brought some message for you people, because I have been ordered by my superior, my spiritual master. Whatever you have learned, you should go to the Western countries and you must distribute this knowledge. So in spite of all my difficulties, all my inconveniences, I am here because I am obligated by duty. Slightly bigger. Yeah. From a lecture by Srila Prabhupada. Room 307 was never meant for use as a residence or ashram or a lecture hall. It was only a small, narrow office without furniture or a telephone. Its door held a large pane of frosted glass, the kind of common in old offices. Above the door was a glass-paned transom. Prabhupada placed his blankets on the floor before his metal footlocker, which now became a makeshift desk where he wrote. He slept on the floor. There were no facilities here for cooking or even for bathing. So daily, he had to walk to Dr. Mishra's apartment. Any of the other devotees want to read the next paragraph?
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Madhuri.
When he had lived in room 501 at Dr. Mishra's Yoga Ashrama, Dr. Mishra had financed his needs. But now Prabhupada was on his own, and whatever he could raise by selling his books, he would have to use for his daily maintenance and for the monthly rent of $72. He noted that for a little powdered chili, the West End Suprete charged 25 cents, 10 times what he would have paid in India. He had no guaranteed income. His expenses had increased and his physical comforts had reduced, but at least he had his own place. Now he was free to preach as he liked. He had, until this one?
Yeah, continue.
Okay. He had come to America to speak about Krishna, and even from the beginning, he had found the opportunity to do so. Whether at an informal get-together in the Agarwal's living room or before a formal gathering at the Butler Lions Club, Dr. Norman Brown's Sanskrit class, Dr. Mishra's Yoga Society, or the Tagore Society. But he did not attach much importance to lecturing where the people who gathered would hear him only once. This was the main reason he wanted his own building in New York, so that people could come regularly, chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam in his company, and hear him speak from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Shall I
Anyone
finish
else
here?
wants to read this paragraph?
Okay.
Moving out of the yoga studio into small office downstairs gave Prabhupada what he was looking for, his own place, but not even euphemistically could that place be called a temple. His name was on the door. Anyone seeking him there could find him. But who could be there? By its opulence and beauty, a temple was supposed to attract people to Krishna. But room 307 was just the opposite. It was bare poverty. Even a person interested in spiritual topics would find it uncomfortable to sit on the rugless floor of a room shaped like a narrow railroad car.
Thank you.
What?
Yeah. Should we
20,
do the one more paragraph, Mataji?
Yeah,
Or
we
should
can.
stop?
Yeah. We can just do one more. Yeah.
One more paragraph. Yeah. We
Thank
can
you.
do one. Right.
One of Dr. Mishra's students has donated a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and Prabhupada recorded some of his solitary versions, which he sent to his own accompaniment of hand cymbals. He also recorded long philosophical essays Introduction to Gita Upanishad. Even if no one attends, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has told him, you can go on chanting to the four worlds. But since he was now free to speak his message in the new situation God has provided, he decided to lecture 3 evenings a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, to whoever would come.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So inspiring, Srila Prabhupada's determination. No? You're so determined to start off this great movement due to which the entire world is benefiting. Thank you so much, Prabhu. So, yeah, before going ahead, let us quickly see the what the other devotees have already covered in the previous sessions in this chapter, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. So we saw how King Prithu's son, after King Prithu's departure, shares the kingdom among all his brothers. And because he is a very gentle devotee, he abdicates his kingly position, Vijitatsva, or he is also called Antardana. And so this he had a son called Havirdana, and Havirdana, from his second wife, he had this son by name Barhishat or Prachina Barhi. Prachina Barhi, a very, very powerful monarch in the Vedic times. And he had married this very beautiful bride by name Shatadruti, and we saw how all the demigods as well were captured by her beauty. And then Prachina Barhi and Shatadruti, they had 10 very wonderful sons who were all known as the Prachetas. And the Prachina Barhi, the father, ordered them to marry so that the progeny, they could produce progeny. And so the Prachetas went to the ocean to conduct their austerities before beginning household life. And on the way, we saw how Maitreya Muni was trying to finish all this in a kind of a summary. He said, oh yeah, then they met Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva gave them instructions, and they very nicely they followed those instructions. But Vidura was saying, no, you have to give me all the details. So he told, please tell me the full details, what all happened. And then Maitreya Muni then went into the detail, how it's very, very difficult to meet Lord Shiva because he's the greatest devotee and only the very fortunate can meet him. And then he described the details where Prachetas arrived at that beautiful lake, and then how they, the beauty of the lake he explained, and then how Lord Shiva emerged from the great lake. And then Lord Shiva, he was very pleased with the Prachetas because they immediately paid obeisances to him. He was very pleased with their humility and their devotion. And then Lord Shiva, he says, Krishna's devotees are as respectable as the Lord himself. So even though he is the greatest Vaishnava, he is so impressed with the Prachetas' devotion. And then he begins this Rudra Gita, a prayer to the Lord. This Rudra Gita, so very important prayer in the Bhagavatam. So other devotees, they already covered how he addresses the most auspicious Supreme Personality of Godhead, begging him for auspiciousness. And then he addresses him as Vasudeva because he is the origin and all-pervading presence. And he is the source of all the material ingredients as well as creation and destruction in the form of Sankarshana. And he also describes the Lord's expansion, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and how he says each one of them takes charge of a particular, and Pradyumna in terms of intelligence, Aniruddha in terms of the mind and senses. And he is also the supreme provider, maintainer, and master of everyone. And from here, we continue to how the Lord is described as the essence of the soul of all existence. That is Canto 4, 24, 39. Sarva Sattvatma Dehaya Visheshaya Staviyase Namastrailokya Palaya Saha Ojo Balaya Cha. Any of the devotees want to chant this?
Sarva Sattvatma Dehaya Visheshaya Sahaviyase Staviyase Namastrailokya Palaya Saha Ojo Balaya Cha.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please.
Sarva Sadatma Dehaya Visheshaya Stavishaya Namastrilokaya Palaya Sahuja Balaya Cha.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Pujaya.
Yeah.
Sarva Sattatmo Dehaya Visheshaya Staviyate Namaste Ilokya Palaya সহ ওজো বলায় চ.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Yeah, continue.
সর্বসত্ত্বাত্মদেহায় বিশেষায় স্থবিরসে নমস্ত্রৈলোক্যপালায় সহ ওজ বলায় চ. Hare.
Can someone read the synonyms? Word to word.
Sarva, all, sattva, existence, atma, soul, dehayo, unto the body. Visheshayo, diversity. Sthaviyasa, unto the material world. Namah, offering obeisances. Trailakya, three planetary systems. Palayo, maintainer. Saha, along with. Ajaha, proesh. Valayo, unto the strength. Cho, also. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. Can read the translation as well, Mataji.
Yeah, translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
My dear Lord, you are the gigantic universal form which contains all the individual bodies of the living entities. You are the maintainer of the three worlds, and as such, you maintain the mind, senses, body, and air of life within them. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Hare Krishna.
Anybody wants to read the purport?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
As the individual body of the living entity is composed of millions of cells, germs, and microbes, the universal body of the Supreme Personality, of Supreme Lord, similarly contains all the individual bodies of the living entity. Lord Shiva is offering his obeisances to the universal body, which includes all other bodies, so that everyone's body may fully engage in devotional service. Since this individual body is composed of senses, all the senses should be engaged in devotional service. For instance, the smelling instrument, the nose, can engage in smelling the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. The hands can engage in cleansing the temple of the Lord, etc. Indeed, being the life ear of every living entity, the Lord is the maintainer of the three worlds. Consequently, he can induce every living entity to engage in his real life's duty with full bodily and mental strength. Thus, every living entity should serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his prana, life, artha, wealth, intelligence, and words, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:22-35. Ita vaja janma sapalam dehinamiha deishu pranoirarthaviridiya diya vacha shreya charanam shada. Even though one may desire to engage in the service of the Lord without sanction, one cannot do so. Lord Shiva is offering his prayers in so many different ways in order to show living entities how to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Such a wonderful purport. We'll just read the Srila Prabhupada has gone to the universal form. So just read the translation once again. My dear Lord, you are the gigantic universal form which contains all the individual bodies of all the living entities. You are the maintainer of the three worlds, and as such, you maintain the mind, senses, body, and air of life within them. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Guru Gauram Giri Shreshtam Yo Vishnam Bhena Sevate Madhavam Tulasi Ram Krishna Kirtan Kiram Swe Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Budle Srimate Bhakti Vishnamba Madhava Swami Iti Namine. Thank you very much again, dear devotees, for this for your kind association and this daily session, Bhagavatam session. So here we have seen how Lord Shiva presents this universal form of the Lord. That is the cosmic manifestation. He is presenting this cosmic manifestation, and we have seen last so many hundreds and hundreds of years, the great scientists of the world, the great philosophers, they have made so many tireless attempts to understand this cosmic manifestation. So many attempts to explain the universe. For example, we had the great scientist Newton who tried to explain how gravitation works. This was one of the first developments, how gravitation works. And then we had the great scientist James Clerk Maxwell, who came up with electromagnetism. He was integrating this electrical force and the magnetic force, how they are all together. And as we saw, Newton was explaining the gravitational force. And then we had Einstein, of course, who came with relativity. Then because relativity was when things are moving at very high speed, closest to the speed of light, and also at very cosmological distances, very great distances. And so the great scientist Einstein was able to explain that, trying to explain that. And then they came up this field of quantum mechanics, where great scientists like Niels Bohr, Max Born, Max Planck, and others, they tried to explain at subatomic, at very minute scales, what is happening, what is reality. Essentially, all these great scientists were trying to understand reality, what is real and what is false. But in spite of so many attempts, they have, like it is said, in the last 100 years, there have not been any success in coming up with a unified theory, what they call the TOE, theory of everything. They want to have a theory which explains everything, So very deterministic. According to this theory, we understand how the planets move, how our bodies work, how human beings behave, how animals behave, everything they want to explain this unified theory. But unfortunately, they have not come close to it. And it is said that all these great theories, they have 97% of the matter and energy, they have not been able to explain. It is beyond their conception. It's beyond their conception, in spite of all the great mental and intellectual efforts. And so then it is said, the modern thinkers, for example, Rishiraj Prabhu, he says, because this is a contrast between the world of objects versus the world of meanings. Because all the material scientists are seeing everything as lifeless objects. But actually, it is said everything has meanings, semantic. Everything, all the objects in the universe have a meaning. Another thing, hierarchical space versus box-like space. Here, all the material scientists think that everything is just a one big box. But actually, we understand from Krishna when he explains in the Bhagavad Gita that it is hierarchical. It starts, the root is the Supreme Lord, and from the root, the trunk comes, and from the trunk, the branches come, and then this is how the cosmic manifestation is there. And then we have the leaves and the twigs and the branches, all this is there in like an inverted tree. It's a hierarchical space starting from the Supreme Lord. And then cyclical time versus linear time. So according to the material scientists, time just moves in a straight line. It something happened in the past and keeps going in the future. But from the Lord, we understand in the Bhagavad Gita, he has revealed that time is cyclical. Everything moves in cycles, just as the seasons move in cycles. The great yugas, they move in cycles. Then there's Brahma's life, it goes in cycles. One Brahma goes, another Brahma comes, even though it lasts for trillions of years. So this is what we gain from the great Vedic scriptures. We understand the real picture of the universe. And hierarchy of observers. So here, for example, Einstein said, there's no observer's position is unique. Each observer can have his own position, and from there he can do the measurements. But from the Vedic scriptures, we know that there's a hierarchy of observers. That is, the Lord is the supreme observer. He is the supreme seer. And below him are the individual observers, like the puny living entities like us. So we think that, oh, we are controlling the universe. No, but above us is a supreme Lord who is a supreme observer. So we see this contrast between the material theory and the what is explained in the Vedic cosmology. And then you see how Lord Shiva explains the universe as the form of the Lord. So even in the various places in the Bhagavatam, this is explained how this universal form, the Lord creates from his. Without the Lord's spark, this material universe cannot run. So we see this verse here. Kala sangyam tada devim bibrat shaktim urukramaha trayo vimshati tattvanam ganam yugapat avishat. The supreme powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into the 23 material elements with the goddess Kali, that is time, his external energy, who alone amalgamates all the different elements. Because without the Lord entering, all this will just be dead matter, without the Lord powering it. And again, the next shloka also says, Su anupravishto bhagavams cheshta rupena tam ganam bhinnam samyojayam asa suptam karma prabodhayan. Thus, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead entered into the elements by his energy, all the living entities are enlivened into different activities, just as one is engaged in his work after awakening from sleep. In fact, factually it is said that when the Lord is sleeping, all the living entities are in fact sleeping with him, and only when the Lord wakes up, the entire universe again starts functioning. And again, the Prabuddha Karma Daivena Trayo Vimshatiko Ganaha Prerito Janayat Swabhir Matrabhir Adi Purusham. When the 23 principal elements, that is the 5 senses, the 5 action senses, the 5 knowledge gaining senses, the 5 sense objects, the sense organs, everything together, 23 elements were set in action by the will of the Supreme. The gigantic universal form of the Vishwarupa body of the Lord came into existence. So very nicely it is described, the position of the Lord. And next sloka, what he says is, as the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form what we see, in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest. So all this is resting on the Lord, the entire thing. And similarly, even in the second canto also, the cosmic manifestation is explained. Sattvam rajas tamaiti nirgunasya gunatraya sthiti sarga nirodeshu grihita maya vibho. So the Lord says, it is described that the Lord is actually nothing to do with the material qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Yet, for the sake of creation of the material world, just for our pleasure and its and the maintenance and annihilation, the Lord accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. So this is how the universal form is created, the Bhagavatam explains. And it says this universal form is a platform for all creation. Everything what we see around us is part of this universal creation only. Again, in the third canto, in the same chapter, it is explained, Yesha hai yashesha sattvanam atmahamsha paramatmanaha adhyo vataro yatrasau bhutagramo vibhavyate. The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation in the material world and the plenary portion of the super soul. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities. So that's why the Lord is called the soul of all souls. And in him rests the aggregate creation which thus flourishes. So without the Lord energizing it, nothing can happen. So again, the next sloka also, this is said. Sadhyatma Sadi Daivascha Sadi Bhuta iti Trida Virat Prano Dashavida Ekada Hridayenacha. The gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10, and 1. That is indeed talking about the 10 senses, and then he's talking about 3 modes of material nature, and that he is the body and the mind and the senses. So everything what we have, what we are so proud of, it is the Lord who is powering it. So Prabhupada, in one of the purports, he says we are like a tiny insect in a big machine. Especially if you are in the human body, we are so tiny, we are in this big machine. He is the dynamic force for all movements, for the 10 kinds of life energy. Again, the purport I was reading yesterday, it said in the throat there is a kind of air, and if that air stops, that's all, like a balloon, this throat will collapse, and that's it. I can't speak and I will choke and die. That's all. So without the Lord's powering, where's the question of even opening a mouth? And in the 11th chapter, of course, the Lord clearly explains that how he is the platform, that he is the Param Nidhanam. He is the platform on which everything exists. Everything exists. And again, similarly, in the 10th canto as well, it is said, Tvai avyam atman purushe prakalpita loka sapala bahujiva sankula. That is when Akrura is praying to the Lord, he is saying this. Yatha jale sanjihate jalokasho ap udumbare va mashaka manomaya. Very similar to what the Prabhupada has told in his purport. Here, Akrura Maharaj is saying, all the worlds of the presiding demigods and teeming populations originate in you, the inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead. These worlds travel within you, the basis of the mind and senses, just as aquatics swim in the sea or tiny insects burrow within an udumbara fruit. It is said in the fig fruit, there are these tiny, tiny insects are there. So like that, within this universal form of body of the Lord, we are all just teeming like little microbes. So we can imagine the difference between us and the Supreme Lord. And in the Bhagavatam, it is explained that this material conception also very important. This pantheistic conception that everything is a form of the Lord is the first step in God realization, it is said. So it's a very important concept Bhagavatam explains. It said, Visheshas tasya dehoyam stavishtascha staviyasam yatredam vyajayate vishwam bhutam bhavyam bhavachayat. The gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is a personal body of the absolute truth, wherein the universal resultant past, present, and future of material time is experienced. And again, it continues. अंडकोशे शरीरेस्मिन् सप्तवर्ण संयुते वैरजा पुरुषो योसौ भगवान धारणाश्रयः. The gigantic universal form of the personality of Godhead within the body of the universal shell, that is Garbhodakasaya Vishnu, which is covered by the sevenfold material elements, is a subject for the Virat conception. Inside, it's a great philosophers, they meditate on this Virat form, by Bhagavatam explains. And similarly, again, they talk about the great machine in the sky in the 5th canto, 23rd verse, 4th chapter, the Shishumara, the great Shishumara constellation in the sky. It is said, this great machine consisting of the stars and planets resembles the form of a Shishumara, a dolphin in the water. It is sometimes considered an incarnation of Krishna or Vasudeva. Great yogis meditate upon Vasudeva in this form because it is actually visible. So nicely, Bhagavatam trains us to see the Lord in all the material manifestations. And Lord Brahma himself, actually, it is said, regained his consciousness because he had forgotten how to create. By this process of meditating on the Virat Rupa, he was able to regain his consciousness. In the 2nd canto, it is explained. So, this meditating on the Virat Rupa is said to be a very important step. And the all-pervading source of creation. So, this Virat Rupa is the all-pervading source of all creation, what we see around us. And here, in the same shloka, it is explained Krishna is also the supreme maintainer. In the Brahma Samhita, it is explained that how, even though he has nothing to do with his creation, without his maintenance, nothing will move. Nothing will move. Very beautiful verse in the Brahma Samhita, where it says, Ekopyasau rachayitum jagadanda kotim yakshakti rasti jagadanda chayadanantaha andantarastha paramanu chayantarastham govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. So it is said that the Lord, actually there's no distinction, no? So the creation is same as the creator, but you cannot say the creator is same as the creation, no? So when the Lord has provided everything, so actually everything we can see as a Lord, no? Distinction between the potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of billions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. So Lord Brahma is revealing that. And he is a provider. In the Kathopanishad, Lord Srila Prabhupada always quotes it, Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam, Eko Bahunam Vidadati Kaman. Even though all the living entities are conscious of the Lord, even though all the living entities are eternal like the Lord, but this Supreme Lord, single person, he provides for all the billions of entities. And he is the maintainer of everything. So many times in the Bhagavad Gita also he says, in the 8.9 he says, even though this entire thing is maintained by me, without me nothing will run, but I have nothing to do with creation, nothing to do with this material manifestation, he reveals. And same thing, even the Bhagavatam also, it is explained, this 10th chapter. Sarvesham hi bhutanam, yesha hai pravavapyaha, gopta cha tad avadhyayi, na kvachit sukham edate. Lord Krishna causes the appearance and disappearance of all beings in this world, and he is the maintainer as well. One who disrespects him cannot prosper happily, it is said in the Bhagavatam. And he may not do it directly. Of course, for the devotees, he directly maintains. But he has a huge network of maintainers because he doesn't get involved in this day-to-day business of this running of this material world. So he appoints a network of maintainers to enable him to do that. Tokanam pitaro bandhu drisha pakshma striya pati pati prajanam bhikshunam grih ajnanam buddhasur. So again, I think Narada Muni, when he is talking to this Prachetas later, he says how father and mother are appointed as the maintainer of the children, then eyelid is as a protector of the eye, husband is a maintainer of the woman, householder is a maintainer of the family and the beggars, and the learned is a friend of the ignorant. So like that, the Lord appoints different persons in different roles to maintain the universe. But everything is under the Lord's supervision. Maya adhyakshena prakritihi, the Lord says. Suyate sa characharam. So everything happens under my material nature, but material nature is under my supervision. And This Virat form is the source of the living force. So this force, whatever we have in this, to be able to move, even a finger comes only from this Virat form, as we have seen. Without the Lord's powering this thing, He is the battery, He is the power source. Without this, nothing will move. And yet, the Lord is completely separate. He has actually really nothing to do with this material world. He is totally separate from this material manifestation. As He has revealed in the Bhagavad Gita as well, in the very famous shloka 9.5, He says, Nacha batsthani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram bhuta brhnacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all the living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation. But myself is the very source of creation. He has nothing to do. Similarly, in the Bhagavatam also, he explains this. Yasmad andham viraj jagne bhutendriya guna. I think this we have seen. Bhutendriya gunatmakaha tadravyam athyagad vishwam gobi surya vivatapa. From that personality of Godhead, all the universal globes and the universal form with all the material elements, qualities and senses are generated. Yet, He is aloof from such material manifestations, like the sun which is separate from his rays and heat. And the Lord's true form actually has no tinge whatsoever of matter. Even though the Lord takes His form, we cannot say that the Lord has become immersed in matter. In this shloka, in the first canto, He said, Yetad rupam bhagavato ha hya rupasya chidatmanaha maya guner virachitam mahadadibir atmani, it says. It said the conception of the Virat, universal form of the Lord, as appearing in the material world is actually imaginary. It is explained in the Bhagavatam. It is to enable the less intelligent and the neophytes to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having form. But factually, the Lord has no material form. So this is just to enable us to view the Lord in the material world. Otherwise, we have no eyes to see the Lord. So this Virat form is just to that. Otherwise, the Lord has no tinge. And He is the true proprietor of this entire creation. So without this, we have seen again earlier, without the Lord powering this creation, and this creation also is meant for His enjoyment. Again, this very beautifully here, Bali Maharaja's wife, Vindhyavali, she very nicely, she says this. Shri Vindhyavali Ruvacha, Kridartham Atmana idam Trijagat Kritam te Swamyam tu Tatra Kudiyo Para Isha Kuryu Kartu Prabhos Tavakim Asyata Avahanti Tyakta Hriyastad Avaropita Kartr Vadha. So Vindhyavali, Srimati Vindhyavali says, Oh my Lord, you have entered this entire universe, you have created this entire universe for the enjoyment of your personal pastimes. But foolish, unintelligent men have claimed proprietorship for material enjoyment, saying, this is my country, this is your country. So certainly they are shameless agnostics, falsely claiming proprietorship. They think that they can give charity and enjoy, as it is explained even in the 16th chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. In such a condition, what good can they do for you, who are the independent creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this entire universe? So nicely she reveals that. And He is the cause of all causes. In the Brahma Samhita, Brahma reveals Sarva Karana Karanam. So, and yet Krishna is not personally, He has nothing to do with this. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, in the Adi Leela, 4th canto, this is very nicely explained. Purve yena prithvira bhara paribhare Krishna avatirna hoila shastrete prachare. So it is said the scriptures proclaim that Lord Krishna previously descended to take away the burden of the earth. But they don't agree with that. What they say? Okay, it is not His business to take burden of the earth. Swayam Bhagavanera karma nahe bhara haran sthiti karta Vishnu karena jagat palan. So, to take away this burden, however, is not the work of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not some laborer to lift some huge lift some huge weight. The maintainer, his plenary portions, Lord Vishnu, actually even Vishnu, just to the blinking, with just movement of his eyelids, everything happens. So he also doesn't need to do anything to maintain. The maintainer, Lord Vishnu, is the one who protects the universe. Otherwise, Krishna has nothing to do with this universe. He is not personally involved. And pure devotees, they neither accept the gross nor the subtle forms of the Lord. The gross is the this form, the material manifestation, the cosmic manifestation, and the subtle form is the Brahman from which it has originated, and the devotees, they are not enamored by either of these two forms. So in this second canto, 10th chapter, it is said, 35 verse. Amuni Bhagavad Rupe Mayate Anuvarnite Ubhe api na grihananti Maya Srishte Vipaschitaha. So it is neither of the above forms of the Lord as just described unto you from the material angle of vision. That is the cosmic manifestation, that is the universal form, and the other thing is the unmanifested form, that is a Brahman from which everything has come. He is accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know him well, because they know him perfectly well, the Mahajanas. So what do they accept? They accept neither the subtle nor the gross. The pure devotees prefer Krishna's personal form. Krishna's personal form. So again, we have seen how even Arjuna says in the 11th chapter, Adrishta Purvam Hrishitosmi Drishtva Bhayena Cha Pravyathitam Manome Taddeva Me Darshaya Deva Rupam Prasida Devesha Jagan Nivasa. Says, after seeing this universal form which I have never seen before, I am gladdened. But at the same time, he is politely saying he is glad, but at the same time, my mind is disturbed with fear. Therefore, please bestow your grace upon me and again reveal your form as the personality of Godhead, O Lord of Lords, O Abode of the universe. And similarly in the Madhya Leela also, 19th chapter, 198. Krishnera Vishwa Rupa Dheki, Arjunera Hoila Bhaya, Sakya Bhave Drashtaya, Shama Paya, Karya Vinaya. He says, when Krishna manifested the universal form, Arjuna became reverent and fearful, and he begged forgiveness for his past impudence towards Krishna as a friend. So he preferred the personal form of the Lord. And Krishna, again in this verse itself, it is explained, and how Srila Prabhupada also has explained that even within this material world, even within this material manifestation, even though we don't have the vision to see the Lord, we can still attain perfection in the material world. One of the purports, he compares the universal form of the Lord to the form, the Archa Vigraha in the temple. This Archa Vigraha, we may say, oh, it is made of material stone, material elements, but no. Even though it is made of material elements, because it embodies the form of the Lord, it is not different from the Lord. So just by serving the material manifestation with our body, mind, and words, as it is very nicely said in this verse, which Srila Prabhupada has quoted, Yetavat janma safalyam dehinam iha dehishu praner arthe diya vacha shreya acharanam sada. Srila Prabhupada concludes this purport with that. So it's the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with life, wealth, intelligence, and words. So actually, Srila Prabhupada says, when we use our life, wealth, intelligence, and words for the service of Krishna, then automatically others also are benefited. And we see the prime example of that is Ambarish Maharaj. So nicely it is described in the Bhagavatam that he used all his material faculties, all his material senses, his wealth, everything in the service of the Lord. He always engaged, Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna, his words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temples and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavan. He engaged his sense of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of Tulasi offered to the Lord. And he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasadam, which yesterday Mataji also mentioned nicely. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord. His head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Ambarish never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service, in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and be completely free from material desires. So very nicely in this purport, Srila Prabhupada has explained how we can proceed from a material conception of the Lord, so-called material conception, not thinking or not imagining, seeing the Lord's energy, seeing the Lord's presence, on the entire cosmic material manifestation, and then proceeding to use all our senses in service of the Lord and then attain perfection even within this material world. So that's where I just wanted to conclude today. Srila Prabhupada's wonderful purport. So kindly, other devotees want to add, correct, or have any other points or comments to make, kindly do so. So with that, I just wanted to conclude.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.
Your explanation of the universal has become an universal.
Thank
Such
you.
great explanation throughout from the creation to the end of this Ambarish Maharaj example. This is what shows that if our all senses through the process of Antakaran, Chitta, Ahankar, Buddhi and Mana are engaged in the service of the Lord, everything is lost to the Lord. That means you are devoted to the Lord. So no material activities can touch you. And that example we can get it from Ambarish Maharaj. The whole body is engaged in the service of the Lord. So there is no point of diversion. So that is how we need to understand this universal form of the Lord. So every part of our body, senses are engaged in the service. That way we can be engaged in 24/7 in the service of the Lord. And the material nature will never touch you. And you will be always in the pure stage of consciousness. Thank you so much for enlightening such a universal
thank you
law
for your kind
that
words.
actually acted on each and every living entity. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else wants to add anything?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So nicely you have described the verses. So hardly anything left out what to speak about. Thank you once again for that. And just to mention that what you have told about that, as a repetition only, that the Lord is everywhere, either himself or through his energies. But the problem is that our material people often under the because of being contaminated cannot see the Lord, because so long we are materially contaminated, we cannot see the Lord's presence everywhere. But without the Lord, nothing can exist. We must understand that. Either he is present himself, very often, very less, of course, but otherwise everything is done through his expansions or through his energies. And one who cannot see that is to be considered he is living in Maya. So either the Lord is there or the Maya is there. When we are in Maya, we cannot see the Lord. But when we can see the Lord, that means we are free from Maya. So that is the we cannot remain in anyone. There is a very clear distinction. Just as in presence of sunlight, there cannot be any darkness.
Correct.
When we are in darkness, means we are absence of sunlight. That means Krishna is not there. Just as a comparison, we can say. And similarly, without Krishna, nothing can exist. We must understand this. And that is the whole, that is, in one sense, that is the conclusion of the Bhagavatam, that when we cannot see the Lord, however colorful and everything it may be, like you have very nicely explained, it just reminds me of my school days when we used to read in the colleges about the different atomic theories. You have told one after another, Max Planck, and then theory of relativity, Niels Bohr, and all that. That they are trying, and as they are progressing, they are discarding the other. That means every time they are proving false what they have told previously. So as one of my, I think I have heard from a guru that he was a scientist. He told that the corridors of the research, scientific research, is a corridor of leftover theories that has been discarded. I mean, one after another. So whatever they try to explain the Lord in terms of material way, it cannot do that. And only they have to take shelter of the Vedic knowledge, and through which our acharyas who have experienced it in their own life and who has proved themselves free from material contamination, they were able to explain the Lord. So we should not speculate, rather we should hear from them, and in this way we can make our conception of the Lord and our attachment to the Lord by increasing our attachment to the Lord, we can understand the Lord. I think that is what you have tried to speak very nicely. Thank you once again for that, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you for adding those comments and feedback. Thank you.
Yes. And just adding to that, all the scientists, they have tried different way. What is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal, they couldn't find anything. So they had to take shelter of the ultimate form of the Lord. Then only they can understand, as Prabhu, as you and Prabhu mentioned. So there is no way. If you are just away from the sun, everything is dark. That means you are in Maya. Only if you move your face towards sun, then only you are connected. Otherwise, you are always in Maya. No matter how great scientist you are not going to get the success. So that is very important to realize who is the Supreme. Unless you understand the Supreme, you are not going to get anything out of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, thank you for a really wonderful tour of the creation, from scientific overview to material creation, and then overview of the spiritual perception. So nicely explained, Prabhu. So many things to learn from this. And unless we understand that Krishna is a true creator, everything emanates from him, it's going to be very difficult for scientists to come to any logical conclusion. Thank you, Prabhu, for taking us to this tour. It takes a lot of time for me to understand part of it, but it was very good to have a good overview in this summary. Thank you, Prabhu, for your kind research and presentation. Thank you very much.
No other comments to conclude here, Mataji?
We conclude now, there being no other comments or questions.
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि विष्णु वृंद की जय हिज ग्रेस पोशक माधव प्रभु की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल ऑल ग्लोरीज टू assembled devotees.